All right, what's up, everybody? We're back, and we're gonna finish up the options menu here with the video settings. So we set up our widget last time, and we're gonna make the functionality to make everything work. First thing I want to do, I noticed in this project that the shadows aren't on, and I'm gonna use that to kind of help determine our graphic settings here. So I'm gonna just click my directional light and check cast shadows. I don't know why that was off by default in this project. I'm just going to make sure my shadows are on, because when we switch into low settings, it's going to remove our shadows. And it's just going to be an easy way we can tell if our graphic settings are switching. So when we go back to medium, we have our shadows. High, they get a little bit better. So we'll just use that as kind of a quick little check to make sure that everything is working. So with that done, I'm going to jump into the options menu. So this is our menu that we made last time. And there's one thing we have to do in here really quick, which I didn't do last time. So if we select all three of these, the text that we put in here, that we just have it say default, I'm going to make sure that is variable is checked here, because we're going to need access to that in our graph. And then what I already did, just to save a little bit of time, is I just renamed them, because I never did that in the last video either. So under resolution, I just click that default right there, and I just named that to res text for resolution text. Did the same thing for graphics. I just named that GFX text, and then VSync, I named that to VSync text, just so I can see them in the graph. And we have our back function that we got straightened out last time, so we can navigate back. So let's start setting some of this up here. So I'm going to do VSync first. That's going to be the quickest. So I'm just going to add both of these on clicked events for VSync plus, VSync minus. We're just going to add them in here. And I'm going to just drag off and do get game user settings. And then I'm going to drag off that, and we want to set VSync enabled and make sure we connect the return up to our target. And then I'm going to grab the VSync text that we just made here, and we're going to drag off and do a set text and look for text right there. And that's going to be for displaying the actual text that we have. So now I want to copy these, paste them down here, plug in our text to our target here. And then when we hit VSync plus, I'm going to enable VSync. So we want to mark that as true. And then when we hit minus, we want that to be false here. So when VSync is true, that means it's on. So I'm going to come here and just type on, and we're going to type off here. And that should set everything, but we're going to want to apply our settings for some other stuff too. So we're going to set that up. So if I click the apply button we made, we'll do on clicked. This will be our apply settings here. So I'm going to just copy the get game user settings, paste that in here. And I'm just going to drag off and just do apply settings. And I'm going to just uncheck that right there, because I don't want any command lines to override what we're going to do. So whatever we set in our settings should be what everything gets set to. Okay, so now we'll set up the graphic settings here. So I'm going to get the GFX plus on clicked, GFX minus on clicked, and I'm going to add a variable in here, and I'm just going to call that GFX index, and I'm going to make that a integer. So I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to do a plus, and then I'm going to pull out another one, and I'm going to do a minus. And then coming off of those, I want to clamp. So I'm going to look for clamp integer, and then I can just copy and paste that down here. The graphic settings, I'm going to clamp from 0 to 3. So I'm going to go make sure that max setting is set to 3. And then we want to set these too. So I'm going to get the GFX index, and we're going to set it. And I'm just going to plug that in. We'll make sure our return value from our clamp is going in there. And we want to make sure that we're adding 1 and subtracting 1. And then I'm going to make a function in here called set GFX. And I'm going to add an input to that. So I'm going to select that input node, scroll down in here, add an input. I'm going to call this index, make that of the type integer. And then I'm going to drag off that and do a switch on int. And since I'm going 0 to 3, I'm going to keep adding pins until I get 0 to 3 here. And then I'm going to take the GFX text variable here, and we're going to drag off and do a set text. And we're going to need 3 more of these. So I'm going to just copy that, and we'll just paste in a couple more. Connect up this variable here to all of our targets. And we're going to connect the execution So I'm going to do something like that. And then in these text fields, I'm just going to write low, medium, high, and epic in the last one. And then I'm going to get game user settings again here, and we're going to plug all 4 of these into this. And then I'm going to drag out from that and do a set overall scalability level. And then this index I'm going to want to pass in there. So I can just right click and get index. And if we scroll all the way down, that get index right here is the index that we're passing in this function. So I can just run that up to there. And now we'll return out and our function should be good. So now if we come back to the event graph, we can grab that set GFX function we just made. We can plug it in here. And I'm going to run this variable to the index there. And we're going to do something similar for the resolution too. So I'm going to grab resolution plus, get an on-clicked, resolution minus, get an on-clicked. I'm going to make a variable in here for res index. And we're also going to need one more too. So I'm going to make another variable, call this resolution. And we're going to change this type to, this is going to be an int point. So we're going to grab that there. And we're going to set this up basically the same way this is set up here. So I'm actually just going to copy, paste it down here. Be easier just to start with this. So then we can grab our res index and just replace this variable that we just copied. And the same thing with these set nodes here too. We'll just replace them. So we want to add 1, -1. And for the resolution in this example, I'm just gonna do 2 resolutions just for test. So I'm just going to clamp this from 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. And then I'm going to make a function in here. We'll call this setRes. Select that input node, give it an input of index, just like we did before. And we'll do a switch on int, just like we did before too. Now I just need 0 and 1 here. And then I'm going to grab this resolution that we just did, and we want to set that. So I'm going to drag one in on each one of those pins. And we're going to want to split that structure open. And then we can put our resolution we want in here. So I'm going to do 1280 by 720 on that one. And then 1920 by 1080 on that one. And then I can grab my resolution text, drag off to set text, plug this in. We can give that 1280 by 720. This will be the text that's going to get displayed in our menu. So then we need another one. We can plug our target in and change that to 1920 by 1080. And then we can return out of here, plug both of those into our return. And then we can grab that setRes function we just made, plug it in here, feed in our index to it. And now on our apply here, we need to make one small addition in here. So I'm going to move that over. I'm going to grab this resolution out. We're going to need that. I'm going to drag off the get game user settings, and we want to set resolution, set screen resolution it's called. So we're going to plug that in here. Going to plug the resolution into it. So now whatever we set this resolution variable to, we're going to set our screen resolution from that when we click apply. Now this should be set up, I believe. So let's try it. So I'm going to compile all that, save it. The shadows are on. Now some of the options you're not going to be able to change in the editor itself. Like for instance, the graphic settings we could change in the editor, but the resolution and the VSync we can't change in editor. That's being controlled by basically like our desktop resolution. So what we can do is hit the little 3 dots here, and you can come down to standalone. So if we open that up, it's going to ask to save anything that's not saved. If you've never used standalone before, this is a way that the editor will simulate a packaged build. So then if we go into our pause menu now, these are set to default right now, and I'll get into that after. But let's do this. So if I go to, I'm already going to be in 720, but if I do it again, it's going to put me into full screen. So I'm just going to go here. We'll jump into the game. Now, if I hit the little till key on my keyboard, which is next to 1, I open up the console command. And then from the console command, if I do r.setRes, you'll see that that comes up there. I can do space and question mark and hit enter. And then if I hit the till key now again twice, so because I did question mark, it's going to tell me what my current resolution is. And it's saying that it's 1280 by 720. So I can hit the till key to get rid of that. We'll go into the options now. We'll turn that up to 1080 and you can see the screen flashes. That's a good sign. We'll go back, resume. If we hit that till key again, now I can just hit up my up arrow and that should get me anything that I've done recently here. So if I do set res again with the question mark, hit the till key twice, now you can see that we're in 1920 by 1080. So the resolution is working. And if I hit that till key and just type in FPS, you'll see that we have stat FPS. So I'm going to turn that on and you can see that I'm at 60 FPS right now. So that means VSync is on. So if I go into my options and we turn VSync off and apply and go back, now you can see that my frame rate went up to about 100, over 100, 110. So we know that VSync is working. And now if we try our graphics, if I go all the way down to low and apply, come back in, you can see our shadows disappeared. And if you want to, you can also do the till key, get that command to come up. You can do SG dot, and then you can see all the stuff in green here. That's going to be all our graphic settings, and there's more if we keep scrolling up too. But we could just pick anything. We could pick like go to our reflection quality, and then if we hit space and question mark, hit enter, hit our tilt key twice, you can see that my reflection quality is set to 0, which is low. Then we go back into our options. We can set that to, we'll go to high, go back in. You can see we have our shadows. We can go right back to reflection quality, check it out, and now it's set to 2, which is high. So we can see that our graphic settings are changing. So everything seems to be working here. The only thing that is not working, and I was going to wait until I did the save game to do this, but I think I might just try and throw in a way around it. If you don't want to do a save game, is I'm sure that you notice that when we go into our menu here, these are set to default, and then if I was to make a change, you can see how it changes. That's what we wanted to have happen. But then if I go back into that menu, it's back to default now. And that's because we closed the menu out. We closed our video menu, so it lost the information that we had stored there. All the variables get wiped out when you close it, and then you reopen it, and it makes a new version of it. So that's where the save game comes in, because you can save the data for all of these to your save game, and then when you open this up, you pull that data from your save game and load it into here. But because I don't have a save game yet, every time I open this up, it's going to just say default on it. So there is something we can do about that. I'm going to wait until I do the save game so that I can implement this into a save game system. But if you don't want to do a save game, maybe you're doing some type of a game where you don't need a save game, I'm going to just show you a way to do that quick. So what I would do is come into your folder somewhere, make a new blueprint class, and then search for game instance. And I'll just create that. And I'm just going to call that custom _ GI. And then I'm going to open that up. I'm just going to show you how to do this on one of them because everything else will be the same here. So I'm going to make a variable in here and we'll say this will be GFX index. And I'll just set this up to save one of our 3 options here. So all I did was just make that same variable that we have in our options menu. So I just picked the GFX index here and I just made it here. So I'm going to just compile and save that. And then if you want to, you can give it a default value. So like what I might do is just pick my graphics and just say like, okay, I want default to be low or medium setting. So I'll go to 1. So I'll give that a default setting of 1. And there's nothing else we really have to do here. So if I go back to the options, so again, you don't have to do this. This options menu is set up the way that I want it. And then once I get the save game, once I do the save game stuff, we'll be implementing this into the saved game. So you don't have to do this part. This is just if maybe you don't want a saved game feature and you just want your buttons to update. That's all I'm going to be doing here. So if you plan on implementing the save game, you don't have to do this. This isn't part of it. But if you want your buttons to update in the meantime, or if you don't want to do your save game, then this can work. So what I'm going to do is just come up here and we're going to do event construct, and then we're going to cast to our game instance. So I'm going to get game instance. We're going to cast to the custom GI that we just made, and I'm going to promote that to a variable. So now I'm just going to make a change here. So we're going to do the graphics setting here. So what I would do is we can delete the variable that we made in this blueprint here. And then instead of using that, I can get the game instance variable, drag off that, and get GFX from there. And then we can plug that in the way we had it. And then we also want to set that too. So I'm going to drag off that reference again and do set GFX. And I'm going to need another one of those. So I'll just copy and paste that, plug that in down here, plug our target in. So now instead of getting that variable from this blueprint, which these variables are going to get reset when we close this, we're going to pull it from the game instance. So we're getting that reference to our game instance, pulling the variable out, and then that's the variable that we're going to be changing in here. And then we need to feed that into our function we made too. So I'm just going to do that. If we go in our function, everything should still be the same in here. So now when we adjust it, we're going to be adjusting it from the game instance. But there's going to be one more thing we want to do, because when our options menu fires up, we want to load whatever is in there. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to get that set GFX we made. And I'm just going to call that here. And then all we have to do is plug in our index. So I can do that right from here, actually. We can just grab that and get GFX index. And then this will be the index that we saved. So then after we get our index, we could call our apply here, but I'm going to grab the get user settings and apply settings, and we'll just do this. So I'm going to throw that up here, and we'll just plug that in. So now if we were to make sure you plug in your return, so we'll compile that. So we're all set to try that out, but one thing we have to do is we have to tell our project to use the new game instance. So if we go to our project settings, maps and modes, and we scroll down, we can pick our game instance class right here. So if I pick the custom GI that we just used, we should be good. I'm just going to save. And then if I jump in and we pause, go to our options menu, you can see that by default now it put us at medium, and that's where we set it. So if I go to low and apply, we can go into the game. You can see we're in low because we don't have shadows anymore. And then if I pause, come back in here, you can see that it remembered that we're in low. So now it's displaying low for us. If you don't want to do the save game, or you don't want to wait for the save game, you can use your game instance to hold that data. So I did just want to show that, even though that's not how I'm going to be setting this up. And the one last thing I wanted to just go over quickly too while I'm in here is the graphic settings. So I'm just choosing to use the set overall scalability just for time to try and keep this video down. Now you can set each individual video option separate if you want to. So if you wanted to, for example, you can make a function in here, and we'll just call this low GFX. Right, so you can make a function in here where you can get game user settings. Like let's say you wanted to make a low graphic setting, but you don't want everything to be on low. Maybe you want your shadows to be on medium, but everything else on low. You could drag off and set overall scalability and tell it to use index 0, which would be setting everything to low. But then maybe you want your shadows to be medium. So you could drag off your get game user settings and do set shadow quality. So this is how you can set up custom settings for low, medium, and high. So I could tell it I want shadows from medium, which would be value 1 here. And then I can return off that. So now what this is going to do is, instead of just setting everything to 0, which would be low, it's going to set everything to 0, and then it's going to set shadows to 1, which would be medium. So in my graphic settings here, I wouldn't want to use the set overall scalability, because that would put everything back to whatever that index was at. So I could just drag that function we just made, that low graphics, drag that out here and plug it into the return, because we don't need to do that part. So now my low settings would have the shadows on. So you can make custom settings. You can do whatever you want to do here, and everything else should work with that. So if I actually compile, save, go in, let's go to low settings real quick. And then if I apply it, go in, you can see we have shadows now. And if I hit escape and quit, and I look at my scalability here, you can see everything is set to low except the shadows are set to medium. And that's the way we had it set. You can make your own custom low, medium, and high if you want to do that on our designer, instead of having a graphics with that, you could have your shadow quality, your reflection quality, your anti-aliasing, your global illumination. So you could set up all those on your menu instead of just having one. I think that's going to be it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.